What's up, guys? Welcome back to Redeemed by Grace. I want to start off this word by saying that your suffering is a setup for God's glory. So, in my life, I've gone through many different trials, many different moments that I felt were going to get the best of me. I didn't see a way out of this. I thought that it was too big for me, but somehow I got through it. Somehow the days, the weeks, the months went on. A season that you're going through is never going to last. A season is when something, like if I was to describe what a season is, a season has a start and an end, right? The same way we have seasons with weather. You've got 4 seasons in Melbourne, and they all have a start and an end, and they keep moving on. It never stays the same. But when you're going through your trials, sometimes it feels like these things, they just are your life. They feel like you're never going to get out of it. And that's one of the lies that the devil will put into your spirit, into your mind, into your whole entire being to believe, which is not true. I used to listen to many different preachers and pastors back in the days. And a lot of the times, I would definitely get peace, and I would definitely get a word that would set in my spirit, and I'd be really happy with. But there was one Bible verse that I really believed in, and I really felt the power of what it was saying. And I'll read it properly. So it's James 1-4. It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That's a very powerful verse, and a verse that I used to really grab onto, because first of all, it highlights that whatever you're going through, the trials of many kinds, it's not specific. It's not saying your health condition or your financial situation that you're struggling in. It's not saying anything in specific. It's saying trials of many kinds. That opens up to basically everyone's problem, right? It says basically that you should look at that as pure joy, because it's doing something in you. There's a process that you're going through. That process that God is putting you through, obviously with faith and trust in Him, is to stretch you and make you a person that can have perseverance. And perseverance is basically going through the same thing, and despite how it makes you feel, you go through it. That particular thing that you find difficult, you persevere, you go through it despite how difficult it is, right? That builds something in you, and God is building something in you. God built something in me. Even though I find myself, falling to fear and worry at times, as I start to, believe more in God's words, and I start to see all the different things God's doing in my life, I start to understand that fear and anxiety is simply a trap of the enemy. And these days it gets, the time I spend in the fear and anxiety gets smaller and smaller and smaller. You can never not worry, you can never not fear, but how much time and how much effort, and not effort, but how much time you give to it is really the main thing you should focus on. If you put all your time and worry into fear, all your time goes into fear and concern, you will find it very difficult to get out of your situation. But if you focus your eyes on God, that ultimately His words say that you have to consider this pure joy. If you really think about it, it's quite a crazy concept that when we look at struggles and trials and hardships and suffering, God is telling us that we have to actually link that to joy, pure joy. So, in other words, it's actually a blessing to go through your trial, because it's stretching you. You're going through a pruning process. You're going through a process that God can only bless you in the way He has to bless you by going through this process. You can't get the blessing of what that process can take you through on your own, just basically going on your own way without God. You can't achieve that on your own. It's something given by God. So that was something that really used to touch me when I used to read it back in the day when I was going through my hardships. I also believe that sometimes, the struggle can be that much, and sometimes for many people it feels like one after the other, and it becomes too much that you don't understand. You may think that you've got a curse over your life because it just doesn't seem fair, and I felt that way myself. But I learned probably a few months ago, actually about 4 or 5 months ago now, when I first started a course to help me with certain areas of my life with healing with tinnitus. I had to go through a lot of different hardships and many trials of many kinds, testing my mind, testing my strength in God. And if I'm being very honest, my faith was tested to the point where I was at a crossroad of really holding on to my faith or actually giving up on it, because it was too much. The devil was so he was giving me so much of mental warfare that he was wanting me to crumble, that I had to choose one or the other. But I chose my faith and my trust in God, even though the situation was so tough. And what I came to learn from that lesson was that sometimes the things that you're afraid of, that you feel like you do not want to go through, I believe sometimes God will actually let you go through your biggest fear, because when you go through that big fear, the thing that you don't want to ever come next to or experience, He will let you go through that so that you can understand that big thing that you've made this to be, you can actually defeat it. You can go through it. It may be very difficult. It may be very hard for you to get through, but you will wake up in the morning and it will be a new day and you will have breath in your lungs, and it's not going to defeat you. I believe God allows us to go through the biggest fear that we have with that particular thing. We want to actually stay away from those things, but that the pushing towards the hardest thing that you were not wanting to go through, and God actually pushing you over the edge and going through it, is probably the most important thing that you need to not only have a deeper faith in God when you get through it, but also to realize that you're building perseverance. Perseverance, the kind that comes from God and only God, not from no man, not from any physical and mental stretching that we can do to ourselves, like we do if we go to the gym. When you go to the gym, you're pushing your muscle, you're tearing your muscle, and you're intentionally doing that on your own. Yes, you become stronger the next day and the days after. Yes, you grow muscle, but that's something that you can only really get from your own hands, But the benefit of something coming from God is completely different and only can be attained, and you would only want it to be attained by God and only God. So I learned that lesson. It's very important to know that sometimes what you are fearing so much, you may go through it. And how are you going to actually look at it afterwards? Are you going to be angry with God? Are you going to be frustrated with God? Are you going to stay in those emotions? I think it's completely normal to feel those things. It's important to be honest with God, but God is testing you to also see, are you going to stay angry and frustrated, or are you going to continue to push past what doesn't make sense and put your faith in God? And one more verse, I believe, that highlights that God doesn't actually want us to look at our trials and our suffering and our hardships as punishment. Our situations of hardship are not punishment, especially if you are one of God's children. It is simply a process that you have to go through, some longer than others, but it's a process that you have to go through, right? But I'll read this verse out to you from Hebrews 12, 10 to 11. It says, God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in His holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So the aim is that God wants to make us righteous and to give us peace. And the only way you can become righteous and have peace is by getting disciplined by God. Although it doesn't feel good, later on it produces the original aim of righteousness and peace. So you can try to think that your suffering is there to beat you down and God's just against you, and you're just never going to get through this. But don't allow what God uses as a process, don't allow what God uses as the building of your whole entire Christian walk to be, don't link that to the devil stealing what it's supposed to do, the fruits of what it's supposed to give you. Don't let the devil steal that and make you have anger, make you have frustration, make you have doubt. And don't stay in that, because we're going to have emotions, but don't stay there. Because if you stay there, you'll become bitter, you'll become angry, and that turns into problems you just don't want. So all I would tell you is focus your eyes on the fact that God is putting you through the process to endure, becoming stronger, having more faith in Him. Perseverance is ultimately the word He's using here, and giving you righteousness and peace. Now, these are some words that we would use to understand based off the scriptures, but there are so many beautiful things and abundance God is bringing into your life when you persevere through your hardships and your struggles. It's all for a reason. It's all for a purpose. Nothing happens just because. It's all for a reason. But are you choosing to have your faith in God? That's what you should be choosing. You should be choosing to have your faith in God. I've struggled and I've given up many times on myself when it's come to the journey that I've been on, in moments. But I've always come back to that place in my spirit, place in my heart, where I've placed my situation in the hands of God. Right? And God has promised us that we are a new creation in Him when we choose Him. He has plans to prosper us, not to harm us, and to give us a future. So if you've gone through hardships, brothers and sisters, if you've gone through things that have taken your joy, taken your peace, taken everything, remember this, that God wants you to consider those moments of hardship as pure joy. Change your spirit of anger, frustration, and pain to joy. As hard as it sounds, train your mind to do that. But by allowing these moments that come in our life, change your mindset when it happens. Change your mindset. You're never going to be perfect. I still go through my moments, but I actually use the things that I'm learning to continuously try to change my mind constantly. Doesn't matter how many times you fall in pity, in despair, get back up, trust in God. So consider all your suffering joy, and remember that God is building you to persevere despite what you're going through, and become righteous and full of peace in Him. If you've gone through all this, don't worry, God has got your back. Share some of the things that you're going through, and I'll pray for you. I want to build a community of people that have, an open dialogue with me, that I can share my testimonies with, that I can also hear your testimonies, how God's worked in your life, right? And I just pray for everyone that watched this video, and I thank everyone that's been supporting me with all the views and, liking and subscribes as well. It's a very beautiful journey of, I've never been a very popular person or very social media oriented. So this is something new for me, and just seeing the organic growth, the little growth every day, it's just fantastic to see, because it means that I'm reaching people, And that's all I want. I just want to be able to reach people that they can continuously come back and see something that they can relate to and feel touched by. But I pray for all you guys that you are able to hear my heart in this message, and the things that I've shared, that you can also pray over yourself to change your heart and get closer to the way God wants you to see these things when it comes to trials and sufferings. So God bless, and thank you very much for watching.